The lecture hall smelled of old wood and chalk dust, that particular scent of academic spaces that Maya had come to associate with possibility. She sat in the third row, close enough to see but far enough to remain invisible, or so she thought. Her notebook lay open before her, pen poised, but her hand had forgotten how to move. Professor David Chen stood at the front of the room, one hand tucked casually into his pocket, the other gesturing as he spoke about Dostoevsky's exploration of suffering and redemption. He was 34, which seemed impossibly distant to Maya's 18 years, yet somehow not distant at all. There was something in the way he moved through ideas, the way his eyes would light up when a student grasped a particularly difficult concept, that made age feel like an irrelevant measurement. "The beauty of crime and punishment," he said, his voice carrying that slight rasp that came from too many lectures and too much coffee, "is not that it provides answers. It's that it forces us to sit with our questions, to live inside them." Maya wrote this down, though she'd already memorized every word he'd said in the past 3 weeks. Since the semester began in late August, she'd attended every class, arrived early, left late. She told herself it was because she was passionate about Russian literature. She told herself it was because she wanted to excel, to prove herself at this prestigious university where she'd won a scholarship despite coming from a town so small it didn't have its own library. She told herself many things, but none of them were true. The truth was simpler and more complicated. She was falling, had perhaps already fallen, into something she couldn't name. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, wind pulling at her clothes, the ground both solid and treacherously far away. When the lecture ended, students gathered their belongings with the usual rustle and chatter. Maya moved slowly, deliberately, arranging her notes with unnecessary care. She had no real reason to stay, but she did this every Tuesday and Thursday, manufacturing excuses to linger. "Ms. Reeves?" Her heart performed its now familiar acrobatics. She looked up to find Professor Chen standing at the edge of her row, a stack of papers under one arm. "Yes?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I wanted to mention your essay on Tolstoy's use of domestic spaces in Anna Karenina. It was exceptional, really insightful." He smiled, and it was genuine, reaching his eyes in a way that made her forget how to breathe. "Have you considered graduate studies? You have the kind of analytical mind that would thrive in academic research." "I'm only a freshman," she said, attempting a laugh that didn't quite work. "Isn't it too early for that?" "Never too early to think about your path." He shifted the papers to his other arm. "Anyway, I just wanted to encourage you. You have real talent." He walked away then, leaving Maya standing in the emptying lecture hall, her chest tight with an emotion she couldn't untangle. Pride, yes, pleasure at the recognition, but beneath that, something darker and more dangerous. Hope. Hope that his words meant more than they should, that his notice of her was anything other than professional. She gathered her things and walked out into the September afternoon, where the campus was bathed in golden light that made everything look like a painting. Students sprawled on the grass, reading and laughing and living their normal, uncomplicated lives. Maya envied them suddenly, these people who could love whom they wanted without consequence. Her roommate Priya found her an hour later in their dorm room, staring at her laptop without seeing it. "You have that look again," Priya said, dropping her bag onto her bed. "What look?" "The I'm thinking about him look." Priya sat down across from Maya, her dark eyes both sympathetic and concerned.
"Maya, you know this is—" "I know," Maya interrupted. "I know, okay? I know all the reasons this is impossible and inappropriate and ridiculous. I don't need the list." "Then why do you keep torturing yourself?" Maya closed her laptop with more force than necessary. "I'm not torturing myself. I'm taking his class, that's all. You have him for one class, but you go to his office hours twice a week. You sit in on his graduate seminar even though you're not enrolled. You've read every paper he's ever published. Because I'm interested in the subject matter." Priya gave her a look that said she wasn't buying it. "When's the last time you went on a date? There are guys our age, you know. Good-looking guys. Guys you could actually be with without destroying your academic career and his teaching position." The words stung because they were true. Maya had turned down 3 invitations in the past month alone. A guy from her psychology class,
another from the campus coffee shop, even her lab partner, who was sweet and funny and completely age-appropriate. She couldn't explain why they all felt wrong, why their youth seemed like a deficit rather than an asset. "I'm focusing on my studies," Maya said finally, which was both true and a lie. Priya sighed. "Just be careful. I don't want to see you get hurt." But Maya was already hurt. That was the problem. You couldn't choose who broke your heart open, who made the world suddenly vivid and terrible and beautiful, all at once. October arrived with its parade of falling leaves and cooling air. The campus transformed into something out of a storybook, all amber and crimson and gold. Maya found herself walking more slowly to class, trying to preserve each moment, as if she could hold autumn and all its feelings in her hands if she just paid enough attention. It was during office hours on a Thursday afternoon that something shifted. She'd come with questions about her midterm paper. Legitimate questions about structuring her argument on the role of fate versus free will in Russian literature. Professor Chen's office was small and cluttered, books stacked in precarious towers, papers covering every surface. It smelled of coffee and old paper, and the afternoon light came through the single window at an angle that made everything look softer. They'd been discussing her thesis for 20 minutes when he suddenly stopped mid-sentence. "I'm sorry," he said, running a hand through his dark hair, a gesture she'd noticed he made when he was tired or frustrated. "I'm a bit distracted today. Is everything okay?" The question came out before she could stop it. Too personal, too concerned. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Maya felt something in the air between them shift, like a door that had been closed, suddenly standing ajar. "My father's sick," he said quietly. "Cancer. I got the call this morning from my mother. Stage 4. I'm so sorry." The words felt inadequate, tiny things against the weight of what he'd said. "It's strange," he continued, and Maya realized he was talking to her in a way that felt different from every other interaction they'd had. "You think you have time. You think you'll say the important things eventually, and then suddenly there is no eventually." Maya understood this in a way that surprised her. "My dad died when I was 15, she heard herself say. "Heart attack. One minute he was there, the next he wasn't. I never got to—" She stopped, surprised by the thickness in her throat. She rarely talked about her father, even with Priya.
"I'm sorry, Maya. God, I didn't know." It was the first time he'd use her first name alone, without the formal Ms. Reeves attached. The sound of it in his voice did something to her, made her feel simultaneously more visible and more vulnerable. "It's why I came here," she continued, words spilling out now that the dam had broken. "He always talked about education being the way out. We lived in this tiny town in Montana where everyone's life was predetermined. Work at the mill or leave. He wanted me to leave, to do something more. And now you're here," Professor Chen said softly. "He'd be proud." "I hope so." She looked down at her hands. "Sometimes I feel like I'm living for both of us, you know? Like I have to make it count twice as much." When she looked up, she found him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. There was sadness in it, yes, but also something else. Recognition, maybe. The look of someone who'd found a kindred spirit in an unexpected place. "I should," he started, then stopped. "Would you like to get coffee? I mean, I could use some air, and if you have time, it's not inappropriate, just two people getting coffee." He was explaining too much, which told Maya everything. He felt it too, this pull between them. The knowledge was terrifying and exhilarating. "I have time," she said. They walked to a coffee shop 3 blocks from campus, far enough that they wouldn't run into other students or faculty. The afternoon had turned cool, and Maya had forgotten her jacket. She was trying not to shiver when she felt weight on her shoulders. His jacket, smelling of cedar and coffee. "You looked cold," he said simply. The cafe was nearly empty, just an older woman reading a newspaper in the corner and a student with headphones working on a laptop. They ordered their drinks, black coffee for him, chai latte for her, and sat at a table by the window. They talked for 2 hours. About books, yes, but also about their lives. He told her about growing up in San Francisco, the only child of Chinese immigrants who'd worked themselves to exhaustion to give him opportunities. About how he disappointed them by choosing literature
over law or medicine, how it had taken years for them to accept his path. My mother still introduces me as Professor Chen, he said with a wry smile. Like, maybe if she emphasizes the title enough, it'll sound as impressive as Dr. Chen would have. Maya told him about Montana, about her mother, who worked double shifts at the diner to keep them afloat after her father died, about feeling like an outsider in her own town, the girl who read too much and wanted too much and didn't fit into any of the boxes her community had prepared for her.
Sometimes I feel guilty, she admitted, stirring her long-finished drink, like I abandoned her. She sacrificed so much for me to be here, and I'm so far away. She wanted you to fly, he said. You can't fly while staying in the nest. The light outside had turned blue with approaching evening. Maya realized they'd been talking so long that the world had changed around them. I should go, she said reluctantly. I have a paper due for my modernism class. Of course. He stood when she did, and they walked back toward campus in a silence that felt charged with everything they hadn't said. At the edge of campus, where their paths would diverge, he stopped. Maya, he said, and the way he said her name made her feel like she was standing on that cliff edge again. I enjoyed talking with you. Really talking. Me too. But, he stopped, seemed to struggle with something. This is complicated. You know that, right? The dynamics, the ethics. You're my student. I know. She looked up at him, and in the darkness, she felt braver than she had in daylight. I know all the reasons why this is wrong, and yet here we are. Here we are, she echoed. He reached out then, just for a moment, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. It was the briefest touch, barely a second, but Maya felt it through her entire body. Good night, Maya, he said, and walked away before she could respond. She stood there for a long time after he'd gone, wearing his jacket, the night air cool on her face, and knew that everything had changed. They'd crossed some invisible line, and there was no going back to what they'd been before. November came with its gray skies and early darkness. Maya moved through her days in a state of heightened awareness, every nerve ending alert. In class, she and Professor Chen maintained perfect professionalism. She was Reeves again. He was careful never to single her out, never to let his gaze linger too long. But after class, in his office, in the coffee shop that had become their secret place, they were simply Maya and David. They never called it dating. They never called it anything. But twice a week they met, always somewhere off campus, always somewhere they could pretend this was normal. They talked endlessly about literature and philosophy, about their childhoods and their dreams. He told her about his ex-wife, a relationship that had ended 3 years ago when they'd finally admitted they'd married too young and wanted different things. She told him about her fears that she wasn't smart enough to be here, that someday everyone would realize she was a fraud. Imposter syndrome, he said, one rainy afternoon when they were huddled in a used bookstore near the river. Everyone feels it. I felt it my entire first year teaching. You? But you're so confident. He laughed. It's an act. The first lecture I ever gave, I threw up beforehand. I was convinced they'd see right through me, that they'd realize I was just a kid playing at being a professor. But you were qualified. So are you. He looked at her intently. You belong here, Maya, not because of your scholarship or where you came from, but because you have one of the most insightful minds I've encountered. You see things others miss. These conversations felt like falling, like flying. Maya had never felt so seen, so understood. Priya was right. There were boys her own age she could date without complication, but none of them saw her the way David did. None of them challenged her thinking, pushed her to be sharper, better, more herself. The first time they almost kissed was in late November, the week before Thanksgiving break. They were in his office, ostensibly discussing her final paper proposal. The campus was quiet, most students already gone for the holiday. Rain battered the windows and the small space felt even smaller, like they were the only two people in the world. Maya was leaning over his desk, pointing to a passage in the book they were referencing, when she became suddenly acutely aware of how close they were. She could feel the warmth radiating from him, could smell that cedar scent that she now associated entirely with him. She looked up. He was already looking at her.
Time seemed to slow, to stretch. The rain faded. The world contracted to just this. His eyes, dark and conflicted. His hand moving almost involuntarily toward her face. Maya, he breathed. And it wasn't her name, but a question. A plea. She leaned forward, closing the distance between them by inches. His office door banged open. They sprang apart like they'd been burned. A colleague of David's stood in the doorway, holding a stack of papers, completely oblivious to what he'd interrupted. David, sorry to barge in. Do you have those committee reports?
I need them for— Oh, sorry, didn't realize you were in a conference. Just discussing Ms. Reeves's final paper, David said, and his voice was admirably steady. Come in, Jim, we were finishing up. Maya gathered her things with shaking hands. She didn't look at David as she left. Couldn't trust herself to maintain composure if she did. In the hallway, she pressed her back against the wall and tried to remember how to breathe. What was she doing? What were they doing? She went home for Thanksgiving, back to Montana and her mother's small house that felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. Her mother hugged her tight at the airport, and Maya was surprised to find herself crying. Baby, what's wrong? Her mother asked, pulling back to look at her face. Nothing. Everything. I don't know. Over turkey dinner, just the two of them, her mother asked about school. Maya told her about her classes, her grades, how challenging and exciting everything was.
She didn't mention the one professor who'd become the center of her universe. The man she thought about first thing in the morning and last thing at night.
You seem different, her mother observed. More grown up somehow. I am grown up. I'm 18. That's not what I mean. Her mother studied her with those too perceptive eyes. You have that look, the one I had when I met your father. Like the world's gotten bigger and scarier and more beautiful all at once. Maya's heart stuttered. There's no one, Mom. I didn't say there was. Her mother reached across the table and took her hand. I just want you to be careful. Not careful like don't take chances. Careful like protect your heart. It's a precious thing, and once you give it away, you can't take it back. That night, lying in her childhood bed, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number.
But she knew who it was. He'd finally used the number she'd given him weeks ago. I've been thinking about that moment in my office. I can't stop thinking about it. This is dangerous, Maya, for both of us. We should stop. We should be sensible. She stared at the message for a long time before responding. I know. Do you want to stop? The reply came quickly. No. God help me, no. Then don't, she wrote back. There was a long pause. Then, when you get back, can we talk? Really talk about what this is, what we're doing? Yes. She didn't sleep that night. She lay awake watching shadows move across her ceiling, imagining what he might say, what she might say, where this impossible thing between them could possibly go. Winter arrived in earnest when Maya returned to campus. The first snow fell the same day she and David finally spoke the truth aloud. He'd suggested they meet off campus, at his apartment. It was risky, more intimate than the coffee shops and bookstores they'd frequented, but they needed privacy for this conversation. His apartment surprised her. She'd imagined books everywhere, academic clutter, perhaps. Instead, it was clean and minimalist, with large windows overlooking the city and carefully chosen art on the walls. It felt adult in a way that highlighted the distance between her dorm room with its cinder block walls and his life. Coffee? He offered, nervous in a way she'd never seen him. Sure. They sat on his couch, carefully leaving space between them, and for a moment, neither spoke. The snow fell outside in thick, soft flakes. I'm falling in love with you, David said finally, the words tumbling out quickly, like if he didn't say them fast, they wouldn't come out at all. I know I shouldn't. I know all the reasons this is wrong, but I am, and I don't know how to stop. Maya felt like she'd been punched and embraced at the same time. I'm already in love with you, she admitted. I think I have been since the first week of class. He closed his eyes, his face contorted with what looked like pain. This is such a terrible idea. I know. If anyone finds out, the university has strict policies. I could lose my job. You could face consequences too. There are power dynamics, ethical considerations. I know, she said again. David, I know all of this. Do you think I haven't thought it through? I've done nothing but think about it.
You're 18. You should be dating boys your own age, going to parties, having a normal college experience. Not, he gestured helplessly between them. Stop telling me what I should be doing. There was heat in her voice now. I'm an adult. I get to choose. But are you choosing freely? I'm your professor. There's an inherent imbalance. Stop, Maya interrupted. She moved closer to him on the couch. I know you're worried about that.
I know you're terrified of being the predatory professor, the man who takes advantage. But you're not. You haven't pursued me. You've been nothing but professional in class. This, she gestured between them, happened in spite of both of us trying to fight it. That doesn't make it right. Maybe not, but it's real. She took his hand, felt him tense, and then relax at her touch. I'm not some naive girl who doesn't understand what she's doing. I know this is complicated.
I know we have to be careful, but I also know that what I feel for you is the most real thing I've ever experienced. He looked at their joined hands, then up at her face. What do we do? I don't know, but I know I can't go back to pretending this doesn't exist. Neither can I. The kiss, when it finally happened, felt inevitable. He pulled her toward him, or she moved toward him. Later, neither could remember who initiated it. His lips were soft and urgent against hers, tasting of coffee and want. Maya felt like she was dissolving and solidifying all at once, like every molecule in her body was rearranging itself. They pulled apart, breathless. David started. Don't say we should stop. I wasn't going to. He touched her face gently, reverently. I was going to say I should have done that weeks ago. They spent the afternoon talking, kissing, making plans. They agreed to keep it secret until the semester ended, and Maya was no longer his student.
After that, they could be more open, though even then it would be complicated. The age difference, while legal, would raise eyebrows. The fact that they'd met in his class would always be part of their story. Worth it, Maya said when they discussed all this. You're worth it. I hope I am, David said quietly. I hope I don't ruin things for you. They became masters of discretion. In class, Maya was careful to participate normally, but not excessively. David never showed her favoritism, was perhaps slightly harder on her than on other students to avoid any appearance of bias. No one would have known, watching them, that when class ended, they were counting the hours until they could see each other again. Finals week came and went. Maya aced all her exams, including David's. When the semester officially ended, she was no longer his student, but they still had to be careful. Faculty-student relationships, even between former teacher and student, were frowned upon. There could still be consequences if their relationship became public. They stole moments where they could. Coffee in the city, an hour away where no one would recognize them, weekend trips to small towns 2 hours from campus. His apartment became their sanctuary, the one place they could be entirely themselves. This is ridiculous, Maya said one evening in January, curled against him on his couch. We're adults in love. Why do we have to hide? Because the world isn't fair, David said, kissing the top of her head. Because people make assumptions. Because you're afraid, she finished. Yes, he admitted. I'm terrified. Not of losing my job, though that scares me too. I'm terrified of the way people will look at you, the things they'll say, that they'll reduce you to some cliché, some girl who slept with her professor for grades. I don't care what people think. You say that now, but Maya, this will follow you. In academia, people talk. If you want to go to graduate school, if you want an academic career, then I'll deal with it. But she understood his fear, even if she didn't share it. She'd seen how people whispered about a senior who was dating a TA. She could only imagine what they'd say about her and David. Still, the deception wore on her. She hated lying to Priya, who knew something was going on, but not what. She hated the careful distance she had to maintain from David in any public space. She hated living her most important relationship in the shadows. 6 months, David said one February night. In 6 months, you'll be starting your sophomore year. We'll have spent the summer apart. You'll go home. I'll visit my parents. When you come back, enough time will have passed. We can be more open then. 6 months, Maya echoed, trying to imagine it.
But 6 months turned out to be a luxury they wouldn't have. It was Dr. Eleanor Sanders who figured it out first. Dr.
Sanders taught Renaissance literature and served on several committees with David. She was sharp-eyed and sharper-tongued, known for her brilliant scholarship and her intolerance for anything she perceived as academic impropriety. Maya never knew exactly what tipped her off. Maybe it was the way David's eyes tracked Maya when she crossed the quad one day. Maybe it was something in his voice when he mentioned her in a department meeting. Or maybe it was simply that Dr. Sanders had radar for secrets. Whatever the reason, she cornered Maya one March afternoon outside the library. "Ms. Reeves?" A word. Maya's stomach dropped, but she kept her face neutral. "Of course, Dr. Sanders." They walked to a bench away from the flow of students. Dr. Sanders didn't waste time on pleasantries. "How long have you been involved with David Chen?" Maya felt the blood drain from her face. Please don't insult my intelligence by denying it." "I've been teaching long enough to recognize these situations. I'm not his student anymore," Maya said, lifting her chin. "There's nothing inappropriate. You were his student. That's enough." Dr. Sanders' voice was cold. "Do you have any idea the position this puts him in? Puts you in? We're both adults. We're not doing anything wrong. The ethics code might disagree, and even if it doesn't technically violate policy, since you're no longer in his class, the appearance alone could be damaging. To his career. To yours. Are you threatening us? I'm warning you." Dr. Sanders' expression softened slightly. "Ms. Reeves, Maya, I don't doubt your feelings are genuine, but you need to understand the reality. David is a brilliant scholar with a promising career. If this becomes public, he will be the one who pays the price. Fair or not, that's how these things work. The older party, the one in the position of power, always bears the heavier consequence. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to think very carefully about whether your relationship is worth potentially destroying everything he's worked for." Dr. Sanders stood. "I haven't reported this to anyone. Yet. Consider that a grace period. Use it wisely." She walked away, leaving Maya sitting alone on the bench, her hands shaking. That evening, Maya told David about the confrontation. She'd never seen him look so shaken. "She knows," he said, pacing his apartment. "She knows, and if she knows, others might know, or they will soon. David, sit down. Let's think about this." "Think about what?" "She's right, Maya. This was reckless. I was reckless. I put my wants ahead of both our futures. Don't say that. Don't you dare reduce what we have to selfishness." He stopped pacing and looked at her. And Maya saw fear in his eyes. Real, deep fear. "I could lose everything," he said quietly. "My position here, my reputation. Other universities won't touch me if there's even a whiff of scandal. My parents? God, my parents would be devastated. After everything they sacrificed for me to get here." "And what about me?" Maya's voice cracked. "Do I not matter in this equation?" "You matter more than anything. That's why—" He stopped, seemed to struggle with something. "That's why I think we need to stop. At least for now. At least until you graduate. 3.5 more years? It's the only way to protect you." "I don't need protecting!" Maya was shouting now, tears streaming down her face. "I need you! I love you! And I love you. That's why we have to do this." "That's not love," Maya said bitterly. "Love doesn't run away when things get hard. Love sometimes means making sacrifices." They argued for hours, going in circles. David was adamant that they needed to end things, at least publicly. Maya was equally adamant that she wouldn't let others dictate their relationship. Finally, exhausted, Maya grabbed her coat. "I won't do this," she said at the door. "I won't pretend I don't love you because it's inconvenient, because people might talk. If you want to end this, if you're willing to let fear win, that's your choice. But don't pretend you're doing it for me." She left, slamming the door behind her. Maya threw herself into her studies with fierce intensity. She stopped going to David's office hours, stopped responding to his texts. When they passed each other on campus, she looked away. If he wanted distance, she'd give him distance. But God, it hurt. It hurt like nothing she'd experienced, worse even than losing her father, because at least that hadn't been a choice. David was choosing to let her go, and that made it unbearable. Priya finally got the whole story out of her one night when Maya came back to their room crying. "Oh, honey," Priya said, pulling her into a hug. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "The worst part is, I can't even be mad at him," Maya sobbed. "He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to protect both of us. But it feels like he's choosing his career over me. Maybe he is, Priya said gently. And maybe that's not wrong. Maya, I love you, but you're 18. You have your whole life ahead of you. If this relationship becomes public, it could follow you forever. So what, I'm supposed to just give up on love because it's complicated? I'm saying maybe some loves aren't meant to be. Not because they're not real, but because the timing is wrong. Maya pulled away, wiping her eyes. I don't believe that. I don't believe that something this real, this right, can be wrong just because of when we met. Even if it costs everything? Maya didn't have an answer. The weeks passed in a haze of pain. April brought spring to campus, flowers blooming in riots of color, students studying on the quad, love in the air. Maya felt like she was watching it all from behind glass. Then, one evening in late April, there was a knock on her dorm room door. She opened it to find David, standing there, looking haggard and desperate. Maya, he said, can we talk? They walked to a quiet spot by the river, where the water moved slow and dark beneath the rising moon. I've been thinking, David began, about what you said, about fear winning. And you were right. Maya's heart began to beat faster, but she kept her voice steady. Right about what? I've spent my whole life being careful, doing the right thing, following the rules, meeting expectations. And then you came along, and for the first time, I wanted something that didn't fit into the neat boxes I'd built for myself. David, let me finish, please. He took her hands. When I tried to end things, I told myself it was to protect you, to protect us both. But really, I was protecting myself. From risk, from the possibility of failure or judgment or loss. And in doing that, I lost the thing that mattered most. What are you saying? I'm saying I was wrong.
I'm saying I don't want to live in fear anymore. I'm saying, he took a shaky breath. I'm saying I choose you. Whatever the consequences, whatever people say, I choose you. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. You're sure? Because David, I need you to be sure. I can't go through that again, thinking I have you and then losing you. I'm sure. He pulled her close. I love you, Maya Reeves. Not despite the complications, but including them. All of you, all of this, all of us. They kissed there by the river, no longer caring who might see, no longer willing to hide the most important thing in their lives. Going public was both easier and harder than they'd expected. They met with the department chair first, explaining their relationship and its timeline. The chair was a gray-haired woman in her 60s who listened without judgment. You're not violating any explicit policies, she said finally. Maya is no longer your student, and there's no indication of favoritism during the semester she was in your class. However, she looked at them both seriously. The optics are not good. There will be talk. There will be those who question your judgment, David, and those who will diminish your academic achievements, Maya, by suggesting your relationship played a role. We understand, David said. I hope you do. The chair leaned back in her chair. I'm not saying you can't be together, but I am saying you need to be prepared for scrutiny. And David, I'm recommending that Maya never take another class from you, and that you recuse yourself from any departmental decisions that might affect her. They agreed to these terms. The reactions varied. Some colleagues were supportive, others coldly disapproving. Dr. Sanders, surprisingly, sought Maya out to apologize. I was harsh, she admitted. I still think this is complicated, and I worry about the implications. But I can see you're serious about each other. I hope it works out. Students were more overtly curious. Maya heard whispers in the hallways, saw the looks. Some were envious, others judgmental. One girl in her English seminar cornered her in the bathroom. Did you sleep with him for an A? She asked bluntly. I earned my A, Maya said coldly, and what I do in my personal life is none of your business. But the comment stung. Would people always question her achievements now? Would she always have to prove herself twice as hard? The hardest conversation was with her mother. 18 years old, her mother said over the phone, her voice tight with worry. And you're dating a man who's 34? Mom, it's not like that. He's not some creep. He's brilliant and kind, and he treats me like an equal. Maya, baby, I know you think you're grown, and legally you are. But there's a difference between 18 and 34. A big difference. In life experience, in power,
I know all of this, Mom. Everyone keeps telling me all the reasons this is wrong, but no one seems to want to hear that I'm happy, that he makes me happy. There was a long silence on the other end. Then her mother sighed. I just don't want to see you hurt, and I don't want you to wake up in 5 years and realize you missed out on being young because you were trying to keep up with someone older. That's not what's happening. Okay, her mother's voice softened. Okay, if you're happy, if he treats you well, then I'll try to understand. But Maya, the minute that changes, the minute you feel like you're sacrificing too much, I'll tell you, I promise. And I want to meet him, soon. That summer, David traveled with Maya to Montana.
She was nervous the entire drive from the airport, watching him take in the landscape. The big sky, the mountains in the distance, the smallness of everything compared to the city they'd left behind. Her mother's house looked even smaller than Maya remembered, but her mother's hug was as warm as ever, even if her eyes were assessing as she looked at David. The weekend was awkward at first. Her mother asked pointed questions. David answered honestly, respectfully. By the end of the visit, Maya found them in the kitchen together, her mother teaching David how to make her famous huckleberry pie, while they laughed about something. He's not what I expected, her mother admitted that night, after David had gone to the motel in town. He's genuine. I can see why you love him. But nothing, baby. I still worry. I'm your mother. Worrying is in the job description. But I can see he loves you too, that he respects you. That matters. Sophomore year was easier. The initial scandal had faded into background noise. Maya and David settled into a rhythm. She focused on her studies, he on his teaching and research. They had dinner together most nights at his apartment, spent weekends exploring the city, or curled up with books. But there were challenges. Maya couldn't help but notice the gulf in their life experiences. David had traveled extensively, had a decade and a half of adult life behind him. Sometimes when his friends visited, people his age with established careers and marriages, Maya felt painfully young, aware of how little she'd lived. Do you ever regret it? She asked him one night in October of her sophomore year. Being with me instead of someone your own age? David looked up from the paper he was grading. Never. Do you regret being with me instead of experiencing typical college relationships? Sometimes, Maya admitted. Not because I want someone else, but because I wonder if I'm missing something. If I'm growing up too fast, then slow down, David said gently. Maya, this doesn't have to be all or nothing. Go to parties with your friends, join clubs, have the college experience. I don't want to be the reason you miss out. But wouldn't you mind? Mind you having a full life? No. He came to sit beside her. I fell in love with you in part because of your vitality, your curiosity about the world. I don't want to dim that. So Maya tried. She joined the literary magazine, went to more social events, spent more time with Priya and other friends her age. David encouraged all of it, never jealous, always supportive. Junior year brought new complexities. Maya was taking upper-level seminars now, several taught by David's colleagues. She worked harder than anyone, determined to prove she'd earned her place. She published her first academic article, a piece on gender dynamics in Dostoevsky that was accepted by a respected journal. I'm so proud of you, David said when she got the acceptance email. This is a huge accomplishment. But even that victory was tainted. She overheard 2 graduate students talking in the library. Of course Maya Reeves got published. Dating a professor has its perks. I heard Chen helped her write it. Maya confronted them, angry and hurt. David didn't help me write anything. He didn't even read it before I submitted. That article is mine. But the doubt had been planted. Would people always question her achievements? The lowest point came in the spring of her junior year. Maya applied for a prestigious summer fellowship at Harvard, a program that would look excellent on graduate school applications. She was a strong candidate, high GPA, publications, excellent recommendations. She didn't get it. I'm sorry, the program director wrote in a brief email. The competition was extremely strong this year. Maya tried to tell herself it was just bad luck, that these programs were competitive, but she couldn't shake the feeling that her relationship with David had played a role. Had the selection committee seen his name on her transcript and made assumptions? Had her accomplishments been diminished by association? She was crying in David's apartment when he came home from teaching. It's not fair, she sobbed. I worked so hard.
I deserve that fellowship. But I'll never know if I didn't get it because I wasn't good enough, or because I'm your girlfriend. David held her, and she could feel the tension in his body. Maya, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this for you. If my presence in your life is hurting your chances, don't, she said fiercely. Don't you dare suggest we end things again. This isn't your fault. It's the fault of a system that judges women for their relationships, but never questions men. Still, if I could take away the obstacles, you can't. No one can.
We just have to keep going.
Senior year arrived with the weight of decisions. Maya was applying to graduate programs, aiming for top-tier PhD programs in comparative literature. David wrote her a recommendation, but they both agreed he should recuse himself from being her primary advisor for applications. It'll look better, he explained, if your main recommenders are people you're not involved with. Maya understood, even if it stung. Everything about their relationship required these calculations, these strategic decisions to avoid the appearance of impropriety. In November, David received an offer from Columbia University, a tenured position, significant salary increase, a chance to work with scholars he'd admired for years. It's an incredible opportunity, he told Maya, his voice careful, neutral. You should take it, she said automatically. It would mean moving to New York. The implication hung between them. Maya still had a semester and a half left. They'd be apart.
We can do long distance, Maya said, though her heart was breaking. It's only a few months.
Maya, David took her hands. I need you to tell me the truth. Do you want me to stay? Because I will. I'll turn down Columbia if you need me to stay. And you'd resent me for it. I wouldn't. Maybe not now, but eventually. David, this is your dream job. You can't pass it up for me. You're not just anything.
You're everything. They talked late into the night, examining the decision from every angle. The rational choice was clear. David should take the position. Maya would finish her senior year, they'd do long distance, and then, well, that depended on where Maya got into graduate school. What if I get into Berkeley? Maya asked. Or UCLA, or any of the West Coast schools? Then we figure it out. Maybe one of us commutes. Maybe we make it work long distance for a while longer. That's not fair to you. You'll be starting a new position. You need to focus. And I need you, David interrupted. Maya, I'm not going to pretend this isn't hard, but we've made harder things work. He accepted the Columbia position. They told themselves it was temporary, that they'd figure it out. December came with its flurry of applications and deadlines. Maya sent off 12 applications to PhD programs across the country. Several were in New York, Columbia, NYU, Princeton. But others were scattered. Berkeley, Stanford, Chicago, Michigan. The waiting was agony. David moved to New York in January, right after winter break. Maya helped him pack, trying to memorize everything about his apartment that had become their refuge. I'll visit every weekend I can, he promised, and you'll come to New York during spring break. I know. But Maya felt like something was ending, even though they were both pretending it wasn't. Her final semester was strange. She moved through it in a daze, missing David with a physical ache. They talked every night, video chatted, texted constantly, but it wasn't the same as having him there, as being able to touch him, see him, exist in the same space. The acceptance letters started arriving in March. Berkeley, accepted with full funding. Michigan, accepted with full funding. Chicago, accepted with full funding. Columbia, rejected. NYU, waitlisted. Princeton, rejected. Maya stared at the results, her heart sinking. The best offers were all across the country from David. The schools near him had said no. When she called to tell him, David was quiet for a long time. Berkeley is an excellent program, he said finally. One of the best. It's 3,000 miles away from you. I know. What do we do? Another long silence. Then, I don't know, Maya. I honestly don't know. They tried to be rational about it. David flew out for Maya's graduation in May, sat with her mother in the audience as Maya walked across the stage. Summa cum laude, departmental honors, everything she'd worked for. At the celebration dinner afterward, her mother pulled her aside. You're going to Berkeley, aren't you? Maya nodded,
eyes filling with tears. It's the best program for what I want to study. I can't turn it down. And David? I don't know, Mom. We're trying to figure it out. Her mother hugged her tight. Baby, I'm going to tell you something, and I don't want you to take it the wrong way.
You're 22 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you. David is a good man, but you can't sacrifice your dreams for any man, not even one you love. He'd never ask me to. I know, which is why this is so hard. That night, alone in David's hotel room, they had the conversation they'd been avoiding. I could try to find something at Berkeley, David offered. A visiting position, maybe. You just started at Columbia. You can't leave after one semester. Then you could defer Berkeley for a year. Stay in New York, work, apply to Columbia or NYU again. And what if I don't get in? What if I put my career on hold and it doesn't work out? David flinched. Is that what this is about? You don't trust us to work out? That's not what I meant. David, I love you, but I also love my work, my future. I can't ask you to sacrifice your career, and you can't ask me to sacrifice mine. So what are you saying? Maya felt like she was being torn in two. I'm saying maybe we need to be realistic. Long distance is one thing for a few months, but years? With no end date in sight? How is that sustainable? People make it work. Do they? Or do they slowly grow apart until they wake up one day and realize they're strangers? Maya, I'm going to Berkeley, she said, and saying it out loud made it real, made it hurt. And you're going to stay at Columbia. And maybe we need to accept that sometimes love isn't enough. Don't say that. David's voice broke. Please don't say that. It's not that I don't love you. It's that I love my future too. And I can't build that future if I'm constantly trying to bridge 3,000 miles. They talked in circles for hours, both crying, both desperate for a solution that didn't exist. Finally, exhausted, they fell asleep in each other's arms, holding on like they could stop time if they just held tight enough. Maya moved to Berkeley in August. The first month was a fog of orientation, meeting cohort members, adjusting to a new city. She threw herself into her studies with fierce determination, trying to outrun her grief. She and David still talked, but less frequently. Time zones were an excuse. Busy schedules were an excuse. Really, it was just too painful. Every conversation was a reminder of what they'd lost, what they'd given up. In October, during a late-night conversation, David asked, "Are we still together?" "Really?" Maya closed her eyes, tears sliding down her face. "I don't know. Are we? I don't want to let you go. I don't want to let you go either. But David, we barely talk anymore. When was the last time we saw each other?" 2 months ago, when I visited in August. Exactly. This isn't a relationship. It's a memory we're both too afraid to let go of. The silence stretched between them. 3,000 miles of silence. "I will always love you," David said finally. "You know that, right?" "You changed my life, Maya. You made me braver. Better. And you changed mine. You saw me when no one else did. You made me believe I deserved to take up space." "So what do we do?" Maya took a shaky breath. "We let each other go. Not because we don't love each other, but because we do. Because holding on when we can't really be together isn't fair to either of us." "I hate this." "Me too." They talked for another hour, remembering. The first time they met, the coffee shop conversations, the way he'd looked at her by the river, the way she'd felt in his arms. They cataloged their love like they were packing it away, storing it somewhere safe. "Goodbye, Maya Reeves," David said finally. "Goodbye, David Chen." She hung up and let herself break apart. Priya, who was her roommate again in graduate housing, held her while she sobbed. "It's not fair," Maya cried. "We loved each other. We did everything right. Why wasn't it enough?" "Because sometimes love isn't enough," Priya said gently. "Sometimes timing matters. Sometimes geography matters. Sometimes two people can be perfect for each other, but wrong for each other's lives." Epilogue. 5 years later. Maya stood in the lecture hall at Berkeley, looking out at the sea of undergraduate faces. She was 27 now, a PhD candidate in her 5th year, about to teach her first solo course on Russian literature. "Welcome to Comparative Literature 101, she said, and her voice didn't shake, even though her heart was pounding. "I'm Maya Reeves, and for the next 10 weeks we're going to explore how literature helps us understand the human experience." After class, a freshman lingered, nervously approaching the podium. "Dr. Reeves, I mean, not doctor yet, sorry.
I just wanted to say I'm really excited for this class. Your research on gender and translation is what made me want to study literature. Maya smiled, remembering herself at 18, shy and ambitious and so certain of what she wanted. Thank you.
That means a lot. Walking back to her office, Maya checked her phone. There was an email from the academic job market listserv. Columbia had posted a position in her field. Her heart did a complicated thing, part ache, part curiosity. She hadn't seen David in 3 years, not since a conference where they'd run into each other and had coffee. It had been awkward and lovely and sad. He'd met someone, he'd told her, a fellow professor. Someone age-appropriate, he'd said with a self-deprecating laugh. She'd told him she was happy for him, and meant it. Maya had dated too, though nothing serious. She'd learned to be content with her work, with her friends, with the life she was building. The heartbreak had dulled to a sweet ache, something she carried but was no longer crushed by. She looked at the Columbia posting again. It was a good position. Better than good. Exceptional. It would mean moving to New York, potentially crossing paths with David. Could she do that? Should she? Her phone rang. Her mother. "Hey, Mom, how was your first day of teaching?" Terrifying and amazing. Maya sat down on a bench, tilting her face up to the California sun. "I think I'm good at this." "Of course you are. You were always meant for this." They talked for a while, about teaching, about Maya's dissertation defense coming up in the spring, about everything and nothing. "Mom," Maya said finally, "if you could go back, knowing how things turned out with David, would you tell me not to do it? Would you tell 18-year-old me to run the other way?" Her mother was quiet for a moment. "No," she said, "because that love, even with how it ended, made you who you are. It taught you about yourself, about what you're capable of feeling. Some loves aren't meant to last forever, baby. Some loves are just meant to change us." After they hung up, Maya sat on the bench for a long time, thinking about love and loss and the choices that shape a life. She thought about the girl she'd been at 18, so certain that love conquered all. She thought about the woman she'd become, shaped by heartbreak and ambition and all the difficult choices in between. She opened her laptop and began writing her application for the Columbia position. Not because she hoped to rekindle something with David. That door had closed, and she'd made peace with it. But because it was the right move for her career, for her future. And if she sometimes still missed him, if she sometimes wondered what might have been if the timing had been different, well, that was okay too. Some loves stayed with you forever. Not as open wounds, but as scars that reminded you of who you'd been, what you'd survived, how you'd grown. Maya had loved David Chen with everything she had, and she'd loved herself enough to let him go, when holding on would have broken them both. That, she thought, was its own kind of happy ending. The sun was setting over Berkeley, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Maya closed her laptop and walked home, carrying her past and her future with equal grace, ready for whatever came next.